The letter arrived on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, creased and slightly damp from the delivery. Victoria looked at it for a long time before opening it, as if the simple act of tearing the envelope might somehow break the delicate balance of her life. She had always been careful about things like that, keeping her world orderly, predictable. But today, something about the letter felt different. It was from her niece, Nora, whom Victoria hadn't seen in years. Nora had moved out of town after her marriage, and though they'd spoken occasionally over the phone, their relationship had thinned like old fabric, worn down by time and distance. "Dear Aunt Victoria," the letter began, in Nora's familiar, looping handwriting. "I'd like to invite you to my new apartment for a little get-together. We've been wanting to reconnect, and I think this is the perfect time. You've always meant so much to me, and I'd love to catch up. Hope you can make it. Nora." A small smile tugged at Victoria's lips, but it quickly faded. There was a reason she hadn't been around. A reason she had distanced herself from family. There were things that still haunted her about her past, things she hadn't told anyone, not even Nora. But the invitation was there, unspoken in its urgency. Victoria hesitated, the memories of her past quietly whispering in her ears, urging her to stay away. Yet something pulled her in. Perhaps it was the thought of reconnecting with Nora, or the chance to finally lay some ghosts to rest. Either way, she couldn't resist. Victoria arrived at the apartment building an hour earlier than the invitation suggested, unsure if it was nerves or just the desire to escape her thoughts for a while. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a damp, gray sky that matched the uneasy feeling she couldn't shake. She took the elevator up to the 4th floor, each passing floor seeming to stretch longer than the last. The door to Nora's apartment was slightly ajar when Victoria arrived, an odd sense of familiarity stirring in her chest. She knocked twice, more out of habit than anything else. A soft voice called from inside, "Come in." Victoria stepped into the apartment and immediately noticed how cozy it was. The walls were painted a soft beige, with photographs of Nora's wedding scattered on the coffee table. A glass vase sat on the windowsill, holding freshly cut daisies. The place felt homey, lived in, the type of place you could imagine your niece settling into after a long day at work. But there was something off about the atmosphere, something that felt too curated, too perfect. Victoria glanced around, searching for an answer. "Nora," she called softly. From the kitchen, Nora appeared, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Aunt Victoria. It's so good to see you." She embraced her, and Victoria could feel the warmth of her affection, but something about the way Nora held on to her felt almost needy. They sat down on the couch, and Nora began to make small talk, asking about Victoria's health, work, the weather, all the usual pleasantries. But there was an undercurrent beneath the conversation, an invisible thread pulling at the edges of their words, tugging at something deeper. "Do you remember my husband, Mark?" Nora asked suddenly, her voice dropping an octave. "He's not here tonight. He's working late." Victoria nodded, her mind racing. Nora's husband, Mark, had always seemed distant, even when they were younger. There was something about him that Victoria had never quite trusted, an air of casual arrogance that made her uncomfortable. Still, Nora seemed happy, and she would never openly criticize her niece's choices. But now, sitting in this carefully curated apartment, Victoria couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong, with Nora, with Mark, with this whole reunion. "So," Victoria began, breaking the silence, "what's really going on here, Nora?" Nora paused, the smile fading from her face. For a moment, Victoria could have sworn she saw something flicker in her eyes, fear, maybe, or guilt. "What do you mean?" Nora asked, though her voice was tight, forced. Victoria leaned in, her tone soft but firm. "I'm not stupid, Nora. This apartment, your husband, this whole act, it's too perfect. What are you really asking me here?" Nora's expression hardened, and for a brief second, the polite veneer cracked. "I need your help, Aunt Victoria," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've made a mistake.